Hello and welcome back to the Bear Pit podcast. You're joined by myself, Elliot, and Ollie once again. Ollie, I wasn't expecting to record this after a 4-0 win. What's
Yeah,
changed?
mate. Well, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Like what a few days can do for a football club and sort of the feeling around it. I know maybe sometimes we can take wins a bit too seriously and look too much into these games, but it was really good, wasn't it? Like just all round the team, the manager, the fans, a real lift after a tough few weeks, and I'm feeling like I might be a jinx myself. I was at Burnley, I was at Preston, I was at Sheffield United, and I've not gone to Hartlepool and Reading, the two games we've won recently. So yeah, it was brilliant, wasn't it? Like a real sort of shock just to win by 4 goals in any game.
And not really like we won 4-0 and we played so well in that 4-0 win. Everything seemed a bit different. You mentioned the fans there. I thought the fans were on side from minute one when we were there. We had a loud sort of "We Are Stoke" before kick-off, and I think that really transcended onto the players because from the first minute whistle they were at it as well and got the best out of them. So maybe there is a case to say that the fans maybe not been a bit too harsh, because I think there's been times where we've been booed off and they've
No.
been rightly booed off, but then there's times where maybe it's not sort of helped with the atmosphere being a little bit toxic and then it's fed onto there. But with the positive atmosphere, we've shown what they can do.
Yeah, I think when you look at some guys you can single out people like Dujon Sterling who hardly played a game for the club really, like he played a handful of games. They don't want to be coming into a team where the fans are already on their back for something that they've not really contributed too much. And you can say that for quite a few of the players, even like Dwight Gayle. He's been out recently and he's come back in. He's looked really good. Well, I thought he looked really good against Hartlepool when he played, and then obviously he's got his goal, which I'm sure we'll come on to. It's a bit of a fortunate one, but a goal's a goal. Um, yeah, like the fans obviously have a right to voice their opinion. But I think the best thing to do when you get to the ground and when you're sort of sat in your seat and the game's about to start is to support the lads. And if something goes wrong, then it's football, isn't it? Like, who's to say that even if Stoke went a goal behind, they couldn't come and, win 2-1. I know it's been quite a rarity in recent years, but yeah, it was really good to see. And obviously the result helps the atmosphere and long may it continue, going into the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what really stood out for me was that every midfielder and attacker got either a goal or assist
Mm.
as well.
Yeah.
And it just shows the creativity that we have. I think the biggest player, who made the most amount of difference, he didn't get man of the match. He didn't even get in the team of the week. Laurent. I thought just him in the holding midfield is just the midfielder we've been crying out for, just someone to drop in. There was no link between the defence to the midfield, and there was no link between the midfield to the attack. And he was that link for both of those parts, I thought, getting the ball from the defence, and that was getting played out wide to either Tyrese or getting it into Gale. I thought he was fantastic. And,
Yeah, and I think maybe like Jordan Thompson, he's been really good recently, in my opinion. But maybe him dropping out of the team gave Laurent a bit more impetus to sort of to be that player because I think Thompson maybe they were sort of sharing that role, and I think when Laurent's gone out there, maybe a bit of a thing to do because he was playing against his old club, he wanted to sort of show up against Reading,
mm,
a bit of a Sam Clucas-esque kind of thing. Um, but yeah, obviously he was really good, and so he capped it off, didn't he? Like at the end, I thought when I first saw it, I thought that he'd put the ball in, but then obviously it goes down as an assist, maybe a little bit of a lucky assist for Dwight Gale's goal off his backside. But yeah, a really good game from him, and like something that we've not really seen from him so far. And you got snubbed somehow for team of the week. I'm not sure how that happened.
no, same here. I feel like I think even Wilmot, you could argue, should be in team of the week as well. Would you say
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, he played. Well, he's always been good, Annie Wilmot. Like he's someone that's probably a candidate for player of the season this season. And yeah, he's always strong. And even without Harry Suter in that defence, the back three, they look really calm, not up against much threat. I thought Reading were really sort of disappointing. Not that I expected a lot, but even someone like Tom Ince has got quite a lot to prove coming back to the Bet365 Stadium, and he just couldn't do it. He was probably one of their main threats, but the players he was playing alongside just didn't look good enough. They didn't really look bothered.
Mm. Would you say that it's Reading were particularly bad, or was it that Stoke were just a class above? Because for me, I thought we were so good, but then you could argue that Reading were, pretty
Yeah,
poor.
I mean, it's got to be a bit of both, hasn't it? Like you've just got to play against what you're up against, and the Stoke players can maybe be accused of sometimes lowering their game to sort of teams around us in the table, but once they didn't do that this time, and it was like they really went for it, and you could see straight from the off that they were sort of going for it, and it was something that I said in the video previous to the game. Like I wanted to see them take the game to a team, especially at home, because obviously they've been so poor at home this season, and thank God they did, and it worked out in the end. Maybe 4-0 was a little bit, uh, not a little bit harsh on Reading, but so you take it, don't you? You take a 4-0 in any league, in any scenario, especially in the predicament that Stoke find themselves in at the minute.
Yeah, for sure. It's the first time we've scored 4 goals, I think, for 2 years now. Last one was against Huddersfield
Yeah.
in the 4-3
Yeah,
win that we had.
they had that sort of flurry, didn't they, where they scored like, Barnsley and Huddersfield away and games like that. And I think there was one at home in the lockdown as well. But yeah, since then they found goals a bit hard to come by, haven't they, recently? So yeah, it's a relief.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like Gayle, we've got to talk about him. He's finally scored for
Yeah.
these. I think it's 50 games in total, but since he's come to Stoke, we all kind of seem to think he's had the striker curse and all this. And I think the classic phrase is, "Oh, he just needs one to go in off his backside," and
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened, pretty much. Can this kickstart his season? Because he not only scored, he did play really well and was man of the match in the game.
Yeah, it's got to, hasn't it? Like for someone like him, I think maybe I listened to his post match press conference, like his little thing interview after the game, and I think maybe he wasn't like claiming it as a brilliant goal, but it was obviously a relief just to see the ball come off him and go into the back of the net, and so he's got to use it as something like that, hasn't he? Like, I think it was his first goal since 2020, so obviously he's just not used to putting the ball in the back of the net, even though we know he's got a track record at this level. He's just got to start finding his feet, and hopefully this goal is the sign of that. Hopefully he gets a run of games. He's not injured because he's had a few worries about that recently. And hopefully, like Alex Neil's found that sort of balance in the front line to feed him, and even if another striker comes through the door, could complement him really well going forward.
Yeah. Who do you think that other striker should be? Should it be Carlin Grant? Because he's got track record, 18 goals for West Brom last year and 19 for Huddersfield, I think, 2 years before that. Is he the sort of striker you want to come in?
Um, I'm a bit conflicted on Carl Grant, to be honest. He's an interesting one, isn't he? Because looking at his record, as you say, the last 2 seasons before this one, he's been really good, and he's someone again that you always use that cliche of he'll get you double figures, and he might even get you 20 goals a season. He looks like someone that could do that, but then sometimes reading things from West Brom fans and even maybe Huddersfield fans, it seems as if he's not really impressed in terms of like his attitude and his work rate on the
Yeah.
pitch and off the pitch. And is that a player that we can sort of afford to accommodate with maybe sometimes people questioning the attitude of our own players? I'm not sure. So Alex Neil, I'm sure he'll know everything about the player that he's going to bring in when he does bring them in. But whether Carlin Grant is going to be that man, I'm not completely sold. Obviously, I think he scored 3 goals this season, so he's not exactly coming to us with the best of records. But then again, teams aren't going to be selling a player that scored a load of goals for them this season. So you have to sort of make do with what you've got, and we need probably someone to come in and bolster that strike force with Liam Delap leaving. And if he's the man, then obviously you'd have to get behind him. But I'm not sure he's definitely the answer to the struggles that we've had.
No, for sure. And I feel like as well, West Brom have got Asante and he's doing really well, but January is the worst time to buy players, I think, because you've got so many players in different roles who aren't performing. They want to get rid of them and can't wait to get rid of them. You're trying to look to get something out of them, and nothing really kind of works in January in a sense, particularly for a rebuild like Stoke have got under Alex Neil. If he wants to get his own players in, January's probably the worst time to get his own players in. He should get maybe if we set key holder Suter and we sell Suter, then that'll be a great way of just rebuilding the squad, because we'll need to rebuild the squad with that money. But then at the same time, we just have so many kind of, what would be the best way to describe it? We have so many kind of little just bits where our squad doesn't really fit into his ideas.
Yeah,
I think on Saturday it worked, but then you could see like Jacob Brown's not a right wing back, for instance, and you could see Phil Jagielka's 40. We can't rely on Jack Bolland for the whole
Yeah,
season.
there's a lot to sort of to address, isn't there? And he's got to do it bit by bit, and he's got to make sure he does it in the right way. So it's a massive job, and maybe one that I think people might have underestimated in recent years. And maybe I'm not saying he was one of them, but something that the job on the surface of it doesn't look as big as it is, and then you sort of come into the club, and I think now he's probably realised just the scale of what needs to happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Nathan Jones might have said that a lot of people in football think that Stoke's the hardest job in football. And I can kind of agree with that in a sense, because if you look at the managers we've had in terms of the track records they've had and they've come to Stoke, all of a sudden their career's not gone to the way it would have been. Gary Rowett was getting Premier League move, well, linked to Premier League clubs before
Yeah,
he
well,
came to
yeah, he's really
Stoke, and then came to Stoke and then realised, oh, maybe we shouldn't trust this guy a little bit.
yeah. I mean, you can say that about numerous things, like even strikers. When a striker comes to Stoke, it's like the end of their time scoring goals, and you just hope that doesn't like put certain players off and managers off. But they've got to move forward. They've got to address the right areas. Strikers obviously a main concern. Goalkeeper's obviously another big one. But yeah, he's got to get it right, and I'm confident he will. Results like that obviously instill a bit more confidence, but we've had results like that in the past. Like, we beat Hull 3-0 away, sort of in the early weeks of his tenure, and then I think we probably went on a run, like quite a poor run. And you've got to go week by week in this league, and you can't really take a result in isolation like all the problems are solved, because that's just not the case.
No, for sure. And I was going to ask you about that, because we seem to, ever since we've come down, we've seemed to use the phrase turning point in our seasons.
Yeah.
We thought that, I think when we beat Hull 2-0 on the first day of the season, when we first came up, it was like, oh, this is the turning point. And then, Swansea away, this is the turning point with that Hogan last minute winner. We seem to use this phrase a lot, but is this actually the turning point, would you say? Or do you think we just got to wait a little bit?
It's tough to say, isn't it? Because I think, especially with the transfer window, there's still a lot of things that can change. So you could say it's the turning point, but then Harry Souttar, I know obviously he wasn't playing at the weekend, but we know how influential he can be. He could then leave in the next, what is it, 8 days of the transfer window. So it's too early to say. I think maybe if they win against Stevenage next week, and then I think it's Luton the week after, if you're winning both of them games, then we can sort of look to kick on and look to get into the top half of the league. But it's tough to say, isn't it? Because then if worst comes to worst and we lose against Stevenage next week, then for a lot of people it'll be like we're back to square one again. When there's just got to be that middle ground of, we're not the best team in the league, we're not the worst team in the league, but they've just got to find their level, and they've got to start playing. They've got to start putting in performances that the fans can be proud of. And Saturday was obviously one of them. So hopefully more of that to come.
Yeah, well, it was certainly something that made the fans like identify a little bit more with Stoke, but it's certainly going to give something that the players are going to be confident about going into their next run of fixtures. Reading I don't think they're in the best run of form, but they're not kind of far in terms of point wise from the playoffs, and that's their 14th. So I think it's about 5 points they're off on the playoffs, and they're 14th, which is mad. So on reflection, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, we've beaten that side and we've beaten them convincingly. This is going to maybe kickstart our season now, and then we can go on a run like Luton. We could beat them. We could easily beat a team like a Huddersfield if we ever come up against them. We could easily beat loads of these teams that we're now coming up against. We've not been able to beat because we might have found a winning formula. It might have been, is it Laurent in midfield in playing with Baker? I don't know, because Baker now seems to look like a better player.
Well, it'll be, they'll have a bit more depth. Obviously, they've let a lot of people go, haven't they? So they need to replace those sort of depth players with just a bit more quality and more players that are bothered to sort of play for the club.
Yeah, I think there's you definitely are right about the bench there, because if you look at our bench, you've got Fielding, Taylor's all right, and then you've got Marjo Wright Phillips on the bench, maybe as a striker. I mean, before the game, we were basically asking ourselves, should we bring our own boots because of how slim we are on the bench? And then you got Sterling, who's just come back. But then if Sterling starts, who else goes into that right wing back slot? Jacob Brown.
Yeah,
Really?
it's not ideal to be pushing him out there when he'll want to be up there scoring goals, especially after he scored as one at the weekend as well. And someone like Emre Tezgel being on the bench, obviously such a brilliant young talent, but do we want to be forcing him into the team at a time where the club's not in the going in the right direction? Possibly not. And so, as good as he obviously is and probably will be in the future, I think Alex Neil, in an ideal world, will probably stick to just playing him in the cup games from moving forward.
Yeah, I believe he'll play against Stevenage, but it was one of those where you could see, oh, it's 3-0, we've got 10 minutes to go.
Yeah,
Let's bring him on because we
yeah,
kind of know that
completely.
it's a little bit of an easier environment to come into rather than if you're chasing a lead or something like this and it's a 17-year-old shoulders that you're pinning your hopes on, then
Yeah,
that's not great really, is it? So but yeah, no, Tesgel, I didn't think he did too badly actually. Just he seemed to run around a lot. That was kind of, and
yeah.
that's what I think, just made me think he had a good game because he seems like want to try and get involved and
Yeah,
thought he did
that's
quite well.
the minimum you ask of a player like that. Obviously we're not asking him to go in there and score a hat trick in every game he plays in, or even score any goals. At 17, it's such a tough task to jump up from playing under 18s and under 21s football to playing against grown men. And so the ideal thing you want from him is just to get that experience of finding his feet and a bit more confidence, going forward into next season where hopefully he'll play a bigger part. And massive hopes for him. Obviously, he's got the potential to be a world class player. So hopefully, you can see a bit more of that.
Yeah, so Stevenage, what are your thoughts on that? Change team or, maybe a
Yeah.
team that we can go, yeah, we're going to try and get into the next round?
Um, I think a lot of people would probably want a bit of a change team, but me personally, like the way the league's going, we're not really. I mean, we're not really, troubling the top six. I mean, at the minute, we're definitely not. And the bottom three, we should be able to pull quite, clear of if we keep putting in performances that we saw at the weekend. And so I don't see why not. You wouldn't go for a bit of a cup run. Someone like Stevenage is one of the lowest teams left in it. Obviously, we all saw their comeback against Aston Villa, which was brilliant. But in an ideal world, we should be beating Stevenage at home on home turf. They're a League Two team that have been obviously doing quite well. But you've got to back the lads, and I think there'll be a few changes. Obviously, maybe Connor Taylor will come back in, and Wright Phillips. I know we've said it pretty much every week, but he might figure in some sort of way. But I think he should probably stick with the same, a similar sort of spine. Someone like Jagielka playing again, and probably keeping. I mean, I presume he'd keep Jack Bonham in goal. So why not? I think you've got to go for it in a game like that.
And then also, we might have signed some people by then because he did say, by our next game, we will have players in. So there is a case if we sign a goalkeeper, then Bonham's going to be in because that's confirmed as him being the cup goalkeeper, the second choice goalkeeper. And then if we sign, it's just someone else maybe in a midfield slot or even a defense slot, then you could argue that you could get a load of other kids involved or something like this.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Jacob Brown maybe get right wing back just to, if we do need him there, then at least he's still got games under his belt playing in that position.
Yeah, I think they've got to. You need a bit of consistency, don't they? Like I'd like to see Gale start again
Yeah,
and
keep that
Brown.
run of form going in terms of goals.
Yeah, you've got to keep these players playing together so they can build up that sort of rapport on the pitch that we've not really seen so far this season.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm gonna go with I'll go 2-0 Stoke, just solid done.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I'd say I'd go. I think it'll be 2-1 because Stevenage they'll be up for it, and they've got loads of fans coming, which is brilliant for them. But ideally, you'd want to see a win, so I'd go 2-1 in that game.
Okay, brilliant. So moving on to the transfers now. We've had a few links here and there. There's not been many links this window. I think it's been one of the shortest
Yeah, it's been
links in
quiet.
terms of windows. Kind of picking at straws here, picking at straws here. But we seem to be going after Etheridge or Iverson. Iverson, the number one target. Etheridge as backup. Happy with either of them two? Which one would you prefer?
I think we mentioned him on the last one, didn't we? Like Iverson would be the best choice for me. But Neil Etheridge, I mean, we saw him against, he had that bit of a viral clip against Forest Green the other week. He made a brilliant save, and so if you can pull a few more of them off if we signed him, it'd be ideal. But he's obviously a solid keeper at this level. He's played in the Premier League. He's I think maybe on high wages, which might have been a bit of a stumbling block for us if we were going to pursue that. But he's lost his place to John Ruddy, who's despite his age has been really good for Birmingham this season. So there's not really, it's not like he's been negative this season in any way. I think most Birmingham fans would probably tell you he's still a really good goalie, and so I'd definitely take him. He's a commanding keeper. He's a big keeper, and probably exactly what we need, really.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that. I think he suffered from COVID for a while, and then
Yeah,
that's why he got taken out of the team initially. And then John Ruddy came in. Turns out John Ruddy was brilliant, and then John Ruddy stayed in. But he was Cardiff's Player of the Year. I mean, I know they got relegated, but it was in the Premier League, and that can't be too bad, really, getting a goalkeeper like that in.
no, you can't complain of that, can you? If we're going to get someone like that in, it's with all respect to Jack Bonham. He's come from League One, and he wasn't exactly pulling up any trees in that league, and so he's someone that'll come in and he'll provide competition immediately, and that's exactly what we need in that area. He's someone that hopefully, he's got a bit of good distribution about him, which is something that we definitely need. And yeah, it'd be ideal. I mean, Iverson would still be my first choice, but I think a lot of that hinges on possibly Leicester letting go of someone. I know they've still got Alex Smithies, I think, as their number three, but I think they want another keeper through the door as well to give them competition.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've all seen compilations of Danny Ward on Twitter at some point in the
Yeah,
season. So I feel like they'll probably want to strengthen that department. But I think it's like what Alex Neil said. He said, there's certain things that I can't control and it's from other clubs. And I think he may be referencing, we want to get Iverson, but
yeah.
Leicester need another goalkeeper and they're not willing to get to loan him out unless they get
Yeah,
someone in.
it's like a domino effect, isn't it? Once something falls, then hopefully something will come our way with that deal. And I think he's probably Alex Neil's number one. He's made that pretty clear. Obviously you had him at Preston, he was brilliant. So ideally we get him in, but who knows? I think we just need a keeper that's got experience at this level. And obviously the guy from Besiktas, nothing came of that in the end. And so
No.
we've moved on to other targets a bit more close to home.
Yeah, and I feel like as well, what I like about this as well is that even if we're getting them on loan, I'd rather get us on loan. It's like Neil said in his press conference, loans should be players that you shouldn't really have in your team. We've
Yeah.
kind of thought about that with if you think about the best loan signings we've had in the past, Victor Moses, Asaidi, Lee Hendry, for instance, they're all players that probably should have been playing for Stoke, but they were playing for Stoke because they needed games. And if you look at maybe Carl Grant, if we're getting him on loan, then I mean, looking at track record, I would probably take it because
Yeah.
19 goals in a season, you can get that out of him. And then if you look at someone like Iverson in particular, I think then should really be playing for a Premier League club, maybe like a Bournemouth or
Well,
that
I was
that
surprised
kind of level.
yeah, that he didn't get a look in at Leicester when Danny Ward was, putting in some poor performances. I think I had Iverson in my FPL team at one point. So I thought he was nailed on to get a game, but wasn't to be. So I'd take him at Stoke definitely.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like that's particularly learning under Schmeichel as well would have helped him at that point to maybe settle back into the team. But they obviously thought Ward was their man going forward. But I mean, I'd take him. I mean, I'd take both of them, but I'd rather have Iverson. I feel like just for his sort of more recent form at Leicester, playing really well in the FA Cup when he has played in the FA Cup, because he's always done quite well. I watched the game when he played against, I think it was Gillingham that they had in one of the rounds. So I watched that on TV and he looked good. And it was kind of
Yeah,
like one of those where you went, well, I'm really worried now because now I don't think we can get it.
yeah, no, I
So
think I remember. I mean, for his career as well, he was number one at Preston for I think 2 seasons, and he was obviously really good for them. And he doesn't, he's coming into like I think his mid-20s, which is obviously still young for a goalkeeper, but he doesn't want to be sitting on the bench for any team at that age. You've got to be going out, and if he's got like international aspirations, then his best thing to do is to come and play for a team that's gonna put him in, week out.
yeah, we've sold it really well to him, to be fair. But I don't know if he'll.
I hope he's listening.
Yeah, hopefully he is listening. But please come, please come, Daniel. But yeah, another random sort of transfer rumor is Sydney Van Hooijdonk from
Yeah. Nailed the pronunciation.
Bologna. Oh, thank you. Nailed the pronunciation, but that seems to be a random link coming out from there. I don't know if it's crap, but Would you
Yeah,
take him as
well,
well?
from what I've seen, he's obviously a big guy, isn't he? Like I think 6'3" was what was reported, and maybe his track record has been. I think his track record in the second league in the Netherlands was good, and then I think his sort of goals. He scored goals in the Eredivisie as well, which is obviously really good. It's a good league, and he's someone that if he's been scouted by Millwall and Swansea, they've got a bit of a track record with of recent years, like someone like Joel Perot for Swansea, or even like Zian Fleming, Millwall. If you're looking at their scouting from abroad, it's been quite good recently, and so if we're in for him, then great. He's a big lad, and maybe a big guy is what we need, sort of someone to complement Dwight Gayle and Brown and Campbell. Why not? I'm sure Alex Neil and his scouts know more than us guys sitting here. So if they're going to bring him in, then I'm all for it. Someone that I'm sure the fans would get behind with a name like that.
Yeah, and I think his dad was a famous player as well. He's played for Celtic
Yeah,
and Forest, and I think some fans may be looking at going, "Oh well, I'll get him not because of him, but because of his dad."
yeah, yeah.
Almost.
It's got a sort of pedigree, and I think what did he play with Kevin Campbell? His
Yeah, he
dad.
did it. And well, it's nice we've got that sort of little collection now. We've got
Yeah,
the Wrights, the Campbells, that we had the Inces, and now we're getting the Van Huystonk. Yes, that's how you pronounce it again. So, it's I don't think I've not seen him play, so I obviously can't talk about it. If you're going off stats, then maybe, because 6 goals in a season was more than any other strikers, so why not?
yeah. Yeah.
Why
We
not
can't turn,
really?
can't turn our noses up at a striker that scores goals at the minute. With all due respect to our guys, they've not been putting the ball in the net this season as much as we'd have hoped. So why not? I mean, I'm sure the YouTube compilations will make him look like Olivier Giroud or Ibrahimovic or something. So go for it,
Yeah,
Soak.
yeah, or yeah, like the goalkeeper from Besiktas, they could make you look even worse. So you never know
Oh
what you're
yeah.
going to get with Stoke anyway. So I mean, particularly with strikers. So anyway, yeah, that's going to wrap this podcast up. If you have enjoyed it, do make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new around here. Do make sure to follow us on our socials as well. We're at the Bear Pit TV on Facebook and Twitter, and then TBP TV, the initials of it, on Instagram as well. So yeah, do make sure to check us out on our socials, and thanks for watching.